Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. Here's your host, Russ McClellan.
Hey, how's everybody doing in the land of COVID? One more time, another show, another segment, or two or three or four. This time we're going to bring some value. I know we are because I have Starleigh Smith in the house. Hi, Starleigh.
Hey, Russ. How are you?
I'm good. And I have EC's. Baena.
Hello.
How'd I do? Baena.
Baena. Maybe four more and you'll get it.
All
It's
right,
okay.
EC's Baena.
Baena. Somebody's going to get it before.
So here's the deal, guys. You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan and Friends. I appreciate it very much. We've been on there about 3 years, having a good time, breaking these things into segments, putting them all over the land of social media, inside the land of COVID. Today, we're talking about laws with Starleigh. Starleigh is an attorney from Florida who is transitioning to being an attorney in Washington and has taken a position with Jeffers, Danielson, Sonn, and Aylward.
Yes.
How is that?
It's great.
Right. And here's what we're going to talk about. EC's, by the way, is our new team leader. So she is going to be commanding the growth and retention and coaching of our company. So she is the person that gets the front office.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you.
You
So
also,
nice to meet you.
yes.
Yeah, we're having fun. We're pushing 80 real estate agents out of about 400 total in all of the offices combined in North Central Washington. We've done it in about 3 years. And I'd like to think that we're bringing value to everybody, not just in real estate, but all types of mindset work and things that we love to do around here, just to help people change their life. And man, the law is funny. The last couple of years, Starleigh, you probably, as an attorney, you're probably thinking, wow, change upon change upon change, and a lot of unprecedented stuff. And then also coming from Florida's, like ideology or political, like the way they look at the world versus Washington on the West Coast. Talk about two different ends of the spectrum.
Yes. Two
Right.
different ends of the spectrum is probably an easy way to say that.
Yeah. And so let's just kind of dive in. What we're trying to do today is help investors, i.e. landlords, that maybe are facing situations where they have a mortgage to pay and they have tenants that either can't pay because of joblessness or adversity that has hit them. It's not like a lot of people said, hey, I'd like to get fired today. And a lot of bosses furloughed a lot of people without their permission, right? So there's people facing hardship that they're unable to make their rent payments. There's other people that are choosing to not make their rent payments and buy RVs and Ferraris, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe Volkswagen Bugs. I don't know, whatever turns you on. But then that puts the landlord, when they're not getting income, the old way. We were able to evict for non-payment pretty quickly. There was a process. So maybe you could explain kind of what is the law? What's on the books these days, and what has happened recently with the governor of the state of Washington signing some changes into our Landlord-Tenant Act, I understand.
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes made since this last legislative session. And Washington, like most of the country, and the CDC issued eviction moratoriums at the beginning of COVID to prevent people from being kicked out of their homes for non-payment. What the Washington legislature did, which is actually kind of brilliant in their forethought, they also passed some temporary laws that are in effect until mid-2023 that kind of hold over some of the moratorium protections for tenants who cannot pay because of COVID-related job loss or financial stress. And so obviously the eviction moratorium expires September 31st, which will be out by the time this airs. But the new law, the temporary law, creates a system of hoops that landlords have to jump through if they want to evict someone for unpaid rent after the moratorium expires.
Right. So let me get. There's probably people out there thinking right now, well, hey, I heard on the radio or on the TV that the Supreme Court struck down the CDC's rule. So what's that about?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court did strike down the CDC moratorium. The CDC moratorium, in its most recent iteration, was more narrowly tailored than previous moratoriums. It was, in theory, only applied to counties who are experiencing high or substantial spread of COVID, but at the end of the day, that applied to 97% of the counties in the country. And so a plaintiff who had already challenged the moratorium came back to the court and said, look, they extended it again. We need you to get rid of this because it's not lawful. And the Supreme Court agreed. They said, look, the CDC did not have the authority to issue a nationwide moratorium. If Congress wanted a nationwide moratorium, they needed to do it. So basically, the Supreme Court said the CDC acted beyond the scope of their power. So the nationwide CDC moratorium was struck down. But Washington has its own moratorium that operates independent of the CDC moratorium, and that was issued under the governor's emergency powers. And so because he has the authority to act in an emergency, he can issue these proclamations, eviction moratoriums. They're formally called proclamations, to stop evictions, even though the CDC can't issue its own nationwide eviction moratorium at the same time.
So is that common where I guess it would be common in a lot of different areas of laws where the feds have one rule. The federal Supreme Court says this is lawful, this is unlawful, this is constitutional, this is unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. And then the states have their own version of reality. Is that I mean, that's pretty law that they say, okay, that's cool. The feds say one thing. I mean, look at marijuana is a good example. The feds say, yeah, it's not that legal. And the states are like, yeah, you can sell it down the street, whatever. Right? So it must be confusing sometimes where you get clients that come in and go, hey, I heard on the news that I can go kick my tenant out, hasn't paid me in 6 months. And, and you have to be the bearer of good news and say, well, actually,
you can't, right?
Well, that's not right. What do you do? Because you've told me some people, and you're starting to see more people, right? Come, look, this has gone on so long now that I'm in jeopardy of getting foreclosed on, because there was a foreclosure moratorium, as I understood, as well as a rental moratorium, eviction moratorium. So now with the eviction or the foreclosure moratorium being lifted, puts people into kind of this weird place where I owe somebody money and they want it. Somebody owes me money, but I can't get it. This is why we're talking, right? Yeah,
it is why we're talking. So the foreclosure moratorium applied to government-backed loans. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA loans, those sort of loans. The mortgage holders were required to offer forbearance or repayment plans. I believe the window for taking advantage of those repayment plans is closing soon. I believe it's at the end of September, or has closed. But the president, the governor, everyone is asking, pleading, begging with businesses, landlords, banks to have grace and mercy, because the funds are there. We just have to get them out to people. And so I haven't heard of a huge wave of foreclosures happening yet. I suspect it's because no one wants to be that headline maker, right? No bank wants to have, the cover of all the news articles saying, so-and-so's foreclosing on everyone, even though all these billions of dollars of repayment assistance is just sitting in the bank waiting for states to hand it out.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, right? So often there is aid, there's federal programs, state programs, local programs even, that are available. But for the layman, the average person, to understand the level of applications and paperwork, and like you said earlier, the many hoops that you have to jump to access that money seems to always be the root of the inefficiency, right? That's the challenge. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fair. And it's made more complicated by the fact that many state workers are still working from home. So in the past, where you could call an office and get a human, you now get a recording that says, hey, we're working from home, send in an email, do all of this stuff electronically. Our response times are delayed. And then you add the additional kind of limiting factor of thousands of people trying to access these funds at the same time. You know, if you and I were to walk through a door together, maybe we could walk through it together at the same time, but it's a lot easier if we walk through it one at a time.
Right, and the understanding there, and it works in all levels of government. I tried to get a multi-season deer tag. They had like 2,000 available in the whole state. And I'm like, they said, I talked to them before. They're like, yeah, go into a store. That's the best way. Like go into Kelly's Hardware and say, hey, I need to buy this tag to go hunting. And that sounds like a good idea. But I showed up. So did a whole bunch of other people. And the person behind the counter at the hardware store goes like, why are all these people in camo here? What in the heck is going on? And then they go, well, why don't you call the 800 number? Because that's the way to do it. And then we're all like, busy. And then all of a sudden the tags all sell out. And you're like, what? I was here. You can imagine that's just one little tiny level of government at the Fish and Game Department. And now we're talking about people's livelihoods and their homes. Whether they're renting or whether they own a home, that's their home. And so, man, what an emotional concept. So, hey, when we come back in the second segment, we're going to dive a little deeper. Is that fair?
Fair.
I like it.
Fair enough.
Be right back with Home Sweet Home with Russ, McClellan, and Fred.